Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Take Data Engineer. So today we will see SQL structured query language, which is very important for data engineer or data related field. Okay, for retrieving the data from the database or doing operations on the CRUD operations on the databases. Okay, so first we will see what is SQL. So SQL is nothing but SQL is a structured query language. Basically it's a standard language used to manage and manipulate relational database. So SQL is structured query language. This is basically used to manage and manipulate the relational databases. So it allow user to perform a wide range of operation, including querying database, update record, managing database structure, etc. So by the help of SQL you can create database, you can create table, you can delete table, insert the data. So whatever, wherever your data is stored, so first what we have to do, first we have to create the database, then under database you have to create the table, and in table you have to store your data in the form of rows and column. Okay, so rows is called so column is called attribute also or field also. Okay, so so in SQL basically so SQL we can, for performing operations on relational database, we can use SQL. Okay, so SQL is essential for interacting with database and widely used in various applications like small scale projects. Suppose in your backend we have small relational databases, then we can use that. So and then there are lot many RDBMS like MySQL, Oracle, and all. So these are the MySQL databases. Okay, relational databases. So we can use all these databases to store the data. Okay, and SQL is the basically this is so this is SQL is case sensitive, so we don't have to care about the syntax, but most of the time whatever the keyword you are using, we have to use as a uh, like capital letters, like a select, insert, or drop something. So whatever the keyword you are using in SQL, you have to write in capital letter. That is the standard way to write, but that is SQL is case sensitive, so it's not case sensitive. So either you are writing in upper letter or lower letter, both have the same meaning, but it is always recommended to use the capital letter. Okay, so we will see so we understand that SQL is nothing but it's a query language. SQL is a query language to do some CRUD operations on the databases and table. Okay, and based on SQL we will grant and these operations also on the databases. Okay, so we will see further the things. So we will see some key concept in SQL. So what is databases? So database is nothing but it's collection of relational data organized in table. So database is nothing, it's a collection of multiple tables. Suppose I have created a you can say a database is like a information database is employee information. So under employee information, one table would be the employee personal information, other would be their departmental, other would be the salaried, so something related to that. So there are multiple table, and under the table we have a store data in the form of rows and column, and that all table are stored in a database. Okay, so that's what database is, a collection of relational data organized in a table. So first we have to, the base would be the data, and the data is stored in the form of rows and column in a table, and then multiple table organized and this form a database. Okay, so database is a collection of multiple table basically. And what is table? Table is nothing but it's a structure format of rows and column to store data. So relational is something where data is stored in the form of rows and column. Okay, so each table represent an entry and each row represent a record. So whatever the each row in a table is called record. Okay, what is SQL statement? So SQL statement nothing but it's a command used to interact with the database. So SQL statement is, suppose select star from a database. If you are writing that, this is the SQL statement. So this is nothing but this is the taking whatever the record are there from the table to fetch. Okay, so that is basically a SQL statement, that is called select statement, insert statement, drop statement, delete statement. So whatever the command we are writing to do some operations on the table or databases, that is called SQL statement. Okay. So now questions come, what are the type of SQL statement? So there are multiple type of SQL statement we can see here. First is the DQL. DQL stand for data query language. So under DQL comes select. So if we wanted to retrieve data from a table, okay, one or more table, we can write like select whatever the. So how we are writing the select statement? First we will write the select keyword, then whatever the column we wanted to fetch. Suppose there are 5 columns, under that you wanted only 2 columns, so we will write column 1, column 2, and whatever the column 1 name, column 2 name, and from whatever your table name, where if there is a condition you can write the condition, where suppose I wanted to fetch some name, so select name and address from table, where I will write the condition, where suppose there is a column called age, where age is greater than 60. So this is the conditions to fetch the data. So based on that conditions only our data get fetched, and we will write like select whatever the column we wanted to fetch and from table where conditions. Then what is the DDL? DDL stands for data definition language. So data definition means for defining. So this is structure used to define and modify the database. So defining is, suppose you wanted to create the table, then you can write, you will write your statement like create database name. So suppose I wanted to create a database called employee, so I'll write the statement create database and then employee, then our employee database get created. So if you wanted to showcase the database, we will write like show database. So whatever the database you have created, your name will come. Now comes to creation of table. So we already see that we already saw that how to create the database. So create database name. Now create table. So under that we have to follow the similar structure, but in case of table we have multiple field means attribute. Okay, so like ID, name, address, age, their CT, something like that. So whatever you column you wanted to create, you can create that, or you can create the schema. So but that is basically called a schema. Okay, so suppose create table name. So under that there are multiple column like ID, what is the data type, int, what is the constant basically not, it's basically a rule on a table. So we will see later what are the constants on the table. So for now you can understand, like suppose there is a primary key is a constant, so in a table ID is a primary key. So how we will create table name. Suppose create table, I wanted to create employee, and so I'll write create table name is employee, and column is ID, data type int, and constant is primary key. Then suppose other name would be name, data type is varchar, and there is no constant, so we'll leave it blank. So similar to that we will create a table. Okay, so this is where to create the table. So alter table, so under DDL we will see alter table. So suppose you wanted to modify the existing table structure, or you wanted to add or drop some column, we can write like that alter table name. So which table you wanted to alter? Suppose employee, so alter table employee, add column name, whatever the column name. If suppose I wanted to add some new column, it's called like salary, so add salary, and then I'll give the data type as a whatever the it's like long or like float, anything you wanted to give, you can give that. Okay, so alter table is basically for modifying the existing table structure. What is called drop database? So drop database basically, if you wanted to delete an existing database structure, we can write like drop database, and whatever the database name we have, we can do that. What is the so then drop table, similar to that, if you wanted to delete an existing table, so we will write like drop table name. Now comes to data manipulation, DML. So data manipulations is basically for manipulating the data. Okay, statement used to manipulate the data. Manipulate means if you wanted to insert your data, so we will write like insert into table name, and whatever the column you wanted to create, column name, value. So for first we will write the column name. Suppose ID, name, so here give ID equal to 3, name equals to Amit, Abhishek, anything, whatever you wanted to write, you can write like that. Then it's like update, so modifying existing record in a table. So suppose there is already existing record in a table, and we wanted to modify that. Suppose there is a already record existing, it's a id is equals to 2. So then I'll write update whatever the table is employee, so we wanted to update the employee table, update employee, set column equals to, so whatever the column value we have in a table you wanted to set that, and based on the condition, so condition is employee id equals to 1, so we'll write like employee id equals to 1. That is for updating. So delete, so delete is basically removing record from the table. So there is a difference between delete, drop and truncate, so we will see later. Okay. So delete is basically used to remove the record from a table, and there like that will basically based on the condition it will delete the record from the table. Then now comes to DCL. DCL is nothing but data control language. So control comes where we will see some access privilege to the database, so that is said by DB and something. So suppose I have access to some write access or read access, or some whatever the access DB wanted to give to some user, so based on that, so that is basically to control on the database or control on the table, so that everyone should not have the access to delete the existing record. So that's why we will use DCL. DCL basically for granting and revoking the access. So suppose you wanted to grant some access, we will write like grant privilege type. So suppose whatever the privilege type we have, on which object we wanted to give, we can give that, and to which user, so we will write syntax like that. Some similar to that revoke, if you wanted to revoke that whatever the access we have already granted, so we will write the revoke access. Okay, now then again come to TCL, transaction control language. So basically for transaction purpose we will use this TCL language. So in TCL, this concept called commit rollback. So commit means what, save all changes made during the current transaction. So commit means suppose we are doing some transactions to like transfer the money from one account to different account. So show that after transfer, the whatever the change added we have, like adding the money or deducting the money from different account, so whatever the change we have made, that all should be committed. Like if we'll start new transaction, so it will show like, okay, you have already transisted 500 from one account to different account, so different account have added a 500 and first account have the like deductions of 500. So all changes should have committed to that. Okay, that is commit. Under TCL we have commit and rollback. So if we are doing some transactions and if wanted to roll back, so you will write like rollback, so revert all the changes. So whatever changes you have made so far during the current transaction, so we have to think about the current transaction. It's not about whatever the changes we have made so far we will get roll back. So whatever the current transaction I am doing, and at the point of some time before committing, if we see that okay there are some problems, so we will revert it back, so we will roll it back. So for rollback we will using the rollback command. Then save point is basically set a point within our transaction. So if you are doing some transaction, so we will we will set a point where you can come later, and then whatever the things you wanted to operate you can roll back, and whatever the actions you can take that. So we will write like save point, and whatever the name you wanted to give that you can give that. Okay, set transactions. So configure properties for the transactions, like set transaction isolation label. So whatever the label you wanted to give some properties, so we can set that transactions also. Okay, then some additional concept we can see. What is view? So view is nothing but, so we have already the table structure, right? So in that table structure we don't want all the table, we want a certain table or some schema to be viewed or perform certain things. So we will select the set of column or rows from that existing table, and we can create as a virtual table. It's like basically a temporary table that is only for the particular session. So virtual table based on the result of select query. So we will write like create view, whatever the view name you wanted to give, so create view temporary as. So whatever the column you wanted to select column 1, column 2, there are 5 columns but I wanted to select only 2 columns. So we will write like select column 1, column 2 from the table, where conditions, whatever conditions we have we can give, and we can perform that view operation. So view is an important concept in SQL. So detailed wise we will see later, for everything. This is the only the basic videos where we will see all these concepts. Okay, and now see indexing. So what is index is basically used to improve the data retrieval operations. So there are primary index, cluster index, secondary index, we will see later. So indexing is nothing but we can correlate with our book indexing concept. So indexing basically to saw something very faster. Okay, so that's why we'll create index. So how, what is the syntax for creating index? Create index, whatever the name on table, which table you wanted to create index, you can create like that if you wanted to create the index. So what is stored procedure? So stored procedure is nothing but it's a similar to, you can say, functions in a different language, that is a stored procedure in the SQL. So this is basically a pre-compiled collection of SQL statement. So there is, suppose, the 10 line of SQL statement, so you wanted to execute every time. So instead of writing again and again, what we will do, we will write as a stored procedure, and whenever that a statement required to use, we can use a stored procedure instead of writing the 10 lines of code. Okay, so a stored procedure is nothing but it's a pre-compiled collection of SQL statement that can be executed as a unit. So as a unit means 10 lines of codes are there, whenever required we can execute all the 10 line by writing a stored procedure. So how to write the stored procedure? The first command we have to write like create procedure, and then whatever the procedure name we have we can write, and it will as, and then there is a alias, it's a procedure name is alias, then as, and we will write a keyword called begin and end, and under that we will write the SQL statement. Okay, so it is simple. We will first write create procedure, whatever the procedure name we have, as we will write begin and end, and under that whatever the statement we have to write, like select a star from the table based on some conditions where age greater than 60 or salary between something, so we can write this statement under the begin and end, and that is the stored procedure. That is also one of the important topic in stored procedure. And even in real world projects also, you have to write multiple stored procedure to execute your query. Okay, so a stored procedure we have to write like that. What is the functions? So function is basically a stored routine that return a value. Okay, so similar to that we have to write create functions, function name, and some parameter if you have to pass, you can pass that, and it will also start with begin and end with end, and whatever the statement we have to write, we can write like that with return type. Okay, here we have to keep a return value also. What is called trigger? So trigger is nothing but it's automatically execute a specified actions in a response to certain event on a table. So if there are certain event happened, so it will automatically get executed, trigger is automatically get executed, so that's why we are using the trigger. Okay, so we have to write like create trigger, trigger name, on which table you wanted to create, you can create like that. Okay, uh, then we can after insert we can write like begin in, and whatever the SQL statement we have, we can write like that. So okay, so this is called trigger, uh, functions, stored procedure, index, view. So in detailed wise we will see later, but for now we can understand like view is nothing but it's a temporary table on a existing table. Index is basically for retrieving the record in faster. A stored procedure is similar to the similar to the function with a different language, where instead of writing the all 10 lines of code every time, we will create a procedure with a name, and whenever required we will call that. And how we will create the procedure? We will create a create procedure name, and it will start with a begin and end with end statement, and under begin and end we will write the SQL statement. Function is also same, but that have the return value. And trigger is also, it will basically whatever the actions we will perform, automatically it execute a specified actions in a response to certain event. So if suppose some events are there on a table, then whatever the triggers we have already written, like it will automatically execute a specified actions in response to that particular event on a table. Okay, and what is constant basically? So constant is which we already understand. What is the constant? So constant is nothing but that is a rule applied to a table column to enforce the data integrity. So there are multiple column in a table, id, name, address. So to enforce the certain rules on a table column, we will apply certain rules. Okay, so that is basically constant is nothing but it's a rule applied to table column to enforce the data integrity. Okay, so suppose there is id, so we are writing a rule called date id should be always integer. So there should not be any id which is start with a name or alphanumeric something like that. It should always be integer. So this is one of the constraint. So like we have known constraint like primary key. So primary key is basically nothing, it's a uniquely identify each record. So in a table, if you are creating the record, so primary key is basically its id. So based on each id we will retrieve the record. Foreign keys ensure the referential integrity between two tables. So there are two tables called department and employee. So each employee have the employee id, and there each employee have the department number also, and each department has department id, the department number. So we are for one table we are refreshing to the we are taking the reference of other table to mapping. Okay, so their foreign key comes into picture. Then what is called unique? So unique is basically ensure all value in a column are unique. So suppose there is a column what I told, it's like id. So unique constant is basically for that particular column each number should be unique. That is called unique constant. Check is basically ensure that value in a column meet a specific condition. So that is check constant. So not null is also we are defining the constant basically to ensure that this column cannot have null value. So suppose there is a name, so name cannot be null. For any person name cannot be null. So we can enforce the not null constant on that particular column, name column. Okay, so similar to that we have to define certain constant on a table while defining their table structure. So we can define that things. That's why constants used and comes into picture also. Okay, so in later video we will see all these concept in detailed manner, how to write that and what are the advanced query we have to write. So we will see all this concept. Okay, thank you, thanks for watching.